Hey meatheads, how's it going everybody? Finally getting another video made. It's been a rough week as far as riding motorcycle and getting to making videos and all that, because I've been trying to get stuff figured out with our house. We had to do some work painting and stuff like that at the house that we're buying, just so that we can actually get to closing on it, which is kind of ridiculous, but it was necessary nonetheless. But I'm also going to give you an update on the bike, as I probably mentioned in that 1 minute video I did in my garage. We have an issue with the old transfer issue that's plaguing early model Milwaukee 8 touring bikes, and I'll get into it once we get going, but let's hear a cold start. So yeah guys, besides the whole house stuff preventing me from really making videos and riding my bike, I discovered an issue with the bike that I should have discovered a long time ago, but in ignorance of I just owned this bike, or started my ownership last June. We're coming up upon when I actually bought this bike, so I'll have had made payments on it for about a year. But what I discovered was, I was checking over my oil levels the one day, just because I was starting to hear some funky noises that I haven't heard before. And maybe it was just, I thought maybe it's just a fluke thing, let me just check it out. So there's no really good way to check the level in the derby cover, so I wasn't too worried about that. But what I decided to do was, I was going to check my oil level for the main oil for the bike, and I was going to check my transmission level. Oil level for the main bike was a little low, and I took that on the fact that last fall I had my bike up to J&L because I couldn't get the damn oil filter off when I changed the oil. And I don't know if the place that serviced the bike before I bought it tightened that oil filter down or whatever, with a wrench. I don't know what happened. Either way, it was on tighter than I could even get it off, and I wanted it there in case something actually did break, then they could at least fix it, Well, they got it fixed, and I don't think that they adjusted the oil levels afterwards, so it was a little low, but it wasn't dangerously low, so I topped it off real quick and went about my merry day there. But what I had happen was, I go to check my transmission level, I pull out the dipstick, clean it off, reinsert it, tighten it down a little bit, to where it's actually fully into the transmission. I pull it out, and there's no oil on the transmission, or no oil on the dipstick. And I'm like, what the hell? And I did my best to try and see in there, and I took actually my phone and turned my camera light on and took a picture, and I could see the oil in there in the picture. So I mean, it's not like I was completely dry on oil, but I was low. And of course, if you know or follow the Harley forums or any of that, and you keep track of what common complaints are about the early 2017, 2018, and early 19 models, they suffer from a oil migration issue where oil from your transmission somehow decides that it's going to go all the way over to your primary. Now, it's not just decides, it's a design flaw from Harley where the primary side somehow creates a vacuum inside of the entire primary, and there's enough gap in the push rod, the clutch push rod housing, and the rod itself that it can pull that oil level down in the transmission and pull all that oil over to the primary. Now, I went and added oil to my transmission because like that seemed like the smart thing to do, is let's top off the transmission quick. And I topped up, I added about 7 ounces I think at the most for oil, and a couple of days later I finally found the time to drain out the excess oil in the primary. And you know, I was kind of hopeful that maybe somehow, you know, early on after I did my oil change, that maybe like the transmission drain plug just wasn't tight enough and it dripped a little out over time or whatnot, or like while I was riding, especially when the transmission level or the transmission oil's hot and all that. But no, that's not what happened. As soon as I loosened up my primary cover, derby cover, all of a sudden I started to see oil come and drip down into my pan. So I know now that I have the transmission issue, and I probably should have known a while ago, but to be honest, like I said, after I just purchased this bike, I was all about just riding it. I didn't care. I rode it like I stole it, you know, and I think a lot of people can agree that like doing that kind of mentality, especially on a model year that is known to be plagued with that issue, that's not a good idea. But either way, I mean, it's a problem, but at the same time, it's what I calculated is I've transferred roughly 7 ounces of oil after 3,700 miles and X amount of months of it sitting in my garage. So it could have been, you know, it could have been for whatever reason that a lot of it transferred when the weather was colder, or now that the weather is hotter, it actually is easier to transfer. I don't know when it's really started, or if it's been doing it since the previous owner purchased the bike, and therefore he sold it and traded it in knowing damn well that the issue was still there and wasn't fixed or resolved, which that's a pain in the ass in its own right. But to kind of give a little bit of detail as to what I'm going to do about it, I'm going to take action. I'm not going to do the primary vent kit from Harley because less than a week now I will be headed out to the Black Hills, which is about a 400-mile trip out there, and I'll be riding through the Black Hills, the Badlands, and all that goodness. So I know a lot of people would be like, well, why don't you just get that kit put on and solve the issue and not worry about it. Well, I would agree, but the problem is that my dealership is freaking plumb full on appointments. They're 10 days out on appointments. So the problem is that when I noticed this a week ago or so. I would have just gotten in this week for it, which is not a problem, but my problem is that the part itself is not stocked at J&L. They don't see that problem very often, so they don't stock those parts, that kit. So I'd have to wait God knows how long before Harley could send one out. So taking that into account, I went and did some more research, and I reached out to some people about what they did about their issue, and a lot of people recommended this Greg Williams fat clutch push rod. And at first I thought it was kind of hinky and whatnot, and I was like, why would that solve the issue? Because you still, create a vacuum or whatnot. But from what I've heard from a lot of people is that this is also the logic that I see in it too. So if you pull off the clutch push rod cover that's there, and you start to pull out that clutch push rod that Harley has in there, it is extremely skinny, and it leaves a lot of play in that tube. And now normally would be okay, but if the oil is migrating along that rod and you have a lot of gap in there, it makes it really easy for a lot of oil to move through there. And metals expand when they're hot, so not only is the rod gonna slightly expand, but so will the tubing expand, because I guarantee you the transmission gets to about 200-ish degrees, we'll say. So if that transmission gets up to 200 degrees, the rod will expand a little bit, but if the gap is still gigantic between the rod and the housing, it doesn't really make a difference. Now, the fat rod really, really, really takes a lot of the play out, and the open space or the open area that's through that tube from the primary to the transmission for the clutch rod. And with that thick rod in there, as that rod even expands because of heat, I think that will solve the problem more than anything, because you not only have shrunk the available space for that oil to travel through, you also have made it even smaller as that rod heats up and gets warmer because of use. And even if the transmission or the primary still has that vacuum created, it's going to have a harder time pulling through a small hole. It's like if you take a big straw and a small straw, trying to suck down a lot of fluid through a small straw is difficult, especially like if you were to think of it as think of it like you're trying to drink a really thick ice cream blizzard from DQ. So I have this thick blizzard. They give me a skinny little straw. I'm gonna have a really, really hard time pulling liquid and material through that straw up into my mouth. But if you give me a larger straw, I have a much easier time because there's less resistance for that fluid to flow. And that's what I'm trying. That's why I think that the rod is probably a good option for somebody if you don't want to have your bike. Oh, to the Rona. If you don't want to have your bike down for, you know, 2.5 hours, and especially if you don't have the warranty. My bike, the warranty ran out on March 18th, I think, of 2020. So, and I know some people are like, well, it's safety bulletin. If you bitch enough to Harley, they'll do it for free and under warranty or whatever. And I was like, I sit there and I hear that and I'm like, I'm not that type of person that's gonna bitch and complain and hope I get something for free. Like, they're a business and they're struggling right now too, you know. Like, a lot of the Harley Davidson dealerships are not going to get any more new models, so if they sell all their new models, then they're shit out of luck, you know. They're looking for inventory of any kind at this point, you know. So in my personal opinion, I don't know when my bike would be back, and I got a trip that I wanted to ride my bike out there, and I want to make some videos while I'm going out there or while I'm out there, you know. So for me, it's only going to take me 10 minutes roughly to do this push rod swap versus waiting, you know, 10 plus days to get my bike just in. And if the part's not in that time, well, now I'm shit out of luck for getting to the Black Hills and taking my bike out there, you know. So it's a horse apiece kind of thing, and I hope that you guys can kind of understand why I didn't get a video out. But that's, hopefully I explained my thought process as to why I'm doing the push rod over the vent kit. And the worst case scenario and all that is if the push rod doesn't work, well, then I just have the stick push rod and I'll still do the freaking vent kit once I need my oil changed. So, you know, it is what it is, but in the time frame and what I want to do, I think that paying $60 to try this fix that I can do on my own without having to take my bike in and pay $300 or so for a service to do that, like I think it's a win-win, because if in the end, if it works, well, you know, I saved $340 maybe or more. Anyway guys, I'm gonna be just chilling and having a good ride and trying to escape the madness that is the world right now with all the riots and the protesting going on. I don't want to get too political about anything right now because I'm sure everybody here is sick of hearing the same stuff on Facebook, you know. So I hope you guys are having a good day. I hope to see you in the next video. I'm hoping that the next time you see a video from me, it will be some great footage of the Black Hills and the beauty that is the Black Hills of South Dakota. And I'll see you in the next one. Peace.